Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes here. Quick reminder, we will not be having a session next Tuesday, but we will be returning the following Tuesday, the 30th. So please keep that in mind. As always, we do record these trainings, so you can come back at a later time and view them as it fits your schedule. Currently, the trainings are lasting about an hour to an hour and 45 minutes. Basically depends on load times of the various web pages, as well as if I get distracted and suddenly go off or have to go back and forth. Looks like we're just about 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go and get started here. On your screen, you should be seeing the dash login page, which is the dash.virtualpbx.com. And it's asking for your username, your password, and your account name. Username, your email address that you used to sign up with, or your admin used to when they created your user. The password, either the system generated it for you, if you just signed up. Otherwise, your admin created a password for you. And then the account name is simply the company name. Now, if for some reason you don't have all of this information or you simply forgot, over here on the bottom right, we've got forgot your info. You just click on that. There we go. And then we need your email address, and then either your account name or your phone number, one or the other. You don't need both. And then you click on Reset Password. The system will send you an email and basically get you logged in to change your password. But once you change your password, it will log you back out to make you log in with that new password. For most people, I do suggest you just click on the Remember Me, and that way you don't have to worry about remembering yet another password in your life. And then we'll go ahead and get logged in here. Now, I'm using a test account that I've logged into several times, so it's not quite the same experience. If you've just signed up and it's your first time logging in, Dash will actually take you to a page that looks like this. Now, the Dash Wizard will pop up, start telling you different highlights about different things. The main thing here, you can always change your email address, your password, and your time zone. Those are the major things changed. As an admin, you also have the account level settings, and the main thing that's changed right here is the time zone. All right, you would just click here, and I normally just say search for like New York or Chicago, etc. Now, this is a test account, so on a live account, you also have another section below the user section for your billing information. So you can update your credit card, you can update your billing contact information, you can see your service plan, that sort of thing. Now, once you're done in here, you just click close over here to the top right, and you'll be back on the dashboard. Again, that first time logging in, the Dash Wizard will pop up and give you some highlights, but we're going to be covering everything, so no need to worry. So up here on your name, you can always click on your name, get back to those account level settings. You've got the D&D switch here, or do not disturb, right? So you toggle this on, that means you're not going to receive calls to your user, right? The little white icon there, or change to white, lets you know it's on. Otherwise, you click it back, and it should be all black, so it's not on. Got the little question mark icon here. You can chat with us. This will open up a chat window, so you can speak to our support team, walk you through a particular setting or feature that you're working on. You have Learn More, which will open up a new tab, take you to the support pages. So again, you can see the specific feature guides that we have. The online store will take you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can buy a flip phone, for example, or the desktop soft phone. There's a blank here because you can have another link for the web phone. So once you've added a web phone to your user and then log back in, or shortly thereafter, it will populate here with a link to the web phone. Basically, you would click on it, opens up a new tab, it takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. We'll talk about that shortly. Over here is the menu icon or the hamburger icon. So right now we're on the dashboard, and then we have these other sections. Some of these are only available depending on your plan, or they have a cost associated with it, like ACDQs has a cost associated with it, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And then here is the logout icon. And then on the left, these are more of the key features of Dash, and we'll be going through each one of these individually. Right here, total users are 21. So these are all my staff members on my account. These are people who make and receive calls. Depending on your plan, adding users may increase your bill, so that's something to be aware of. If you're not sure, like you've been with us for a while, or you're a new admin and the boss says, hey, you're in charge of this account, but you weren't there for the setup, you might want to double check with our account services team to verify if adding users is going to increase your bill or not. Next up, we got devices. I have a total of 34, and then I've got a breakdown. So cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. The web phone, which I just mentioned, I've got 11 of those. This soft phone short for software application phone, right? So soft phone. It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. This can be either the VirtualPBX soft phone application, or it could be a third-party application. So like you could be using software from Counterpath. It could also be referencing a VoIP phone that you weren't able to auto-provision. It's called third-party provisioning. Just for clarification, the web phone is a type of soft phone. It just has a different subheading because it's relatively specialized. Next, we have the SIP phone. This is the physical VoIP phone, right? So it's just on your desk, and this is, you can auto-provisioned. And then we've got the landline, pretty self-explanatory. In general, adding cell phones or landlines will not have an impact on your bill. Adding VoIP phones may have an impact on your bill depending on your plan. Then down here, you see I have 11 unregistered devices. So this is in reference to the VoIP devices, right? The system knows, hey, if a VoIP phone is connected or registered with us or not, which means if it is registered, we can send calls to and from that device. If it's unregistered, we're not going to be able to do anything with that device. All right, down here, we've got total phone numbers, which is 41. So on your plan includes anywhere from 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, right? So you don't pay anything extra for those numbers. If you go over that allotment, there will be a charge per phone number. And again, depends on your plan, anywhere from $1.99 per month per phone number up to, I believe, up to $9.99 per month per phone number, depending on the plan. So then we have a breakdown of the numbers. We have assigned and spare numbers. So an assigned number means you're using it. It goes someplace, right? Someone can call that number and expect to either speak to someone, leave a voicemail, or get to a conference or a fax box. Right? Those are the essential common uses, right? So that could be, it goes to one of your salespeople directly. It could go right into your main numbers. It can go to your billing department. It can go to your tech support department, etc. Now, spare number on your account, but you're not using it, right? Maybe it's a number you're using that you just used on a advertising campaign, and you just ended that campaign. So you're like, okay, let's stop using that number, so we stop getting calls on something we're no longer promoting, right? Or you got like 10 numbers in sequence, and you just haven't gotten to the last, 4 or 5, whatever. You're like, okay, but we're going to get to them, so we'll keep them on the account because we like having those numbers in order. We have a follow-up breakdown here between USDID and US toll-free. So US toll-free is actually US and Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently, right? USDID, that just means a US local number. So a number in San Jose, California versus, say, Elmira, New York. Anywhere in between. You can have international numbers on your account. If you are interested in getting an international number, you're going to want to email our porting team, which is porting@virtualpbx.com, and they'll need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. Now, If there's additional requirements, the porting team will let you know. Right? Some countries, like Germany, for example, wants proof of presence within the city that you're requesting a phone number in. Usually, a utility bill is sufficient. Other countries don't care. Others are even more stringent. Just depends on their particular regulations. Next up, we've got conference bridges. All right, I've got 5. This just means I have enabled conferencing on 5 of my users, right? So I have 5 people who can host or / moderate a conference. For here at the top, we got main numbers. So these numbers, right, I have 3 listed here, all behave in the same fashion. So they're all going to route initially to the same place. And let's, for example, they're going to go to my virtual receptionist, and which means they'll have the same main greeting play. All right, obviously you can have multiple here. Next up, we got conference number. So if you are going to enable conferencing on a user, you first need to have a main conference number. And you can have multiple conference numbers if you so desire. Next up, we got the fax box number. So by assigning a fax box number, you enable faxing on the system. So, and this number is the number you're receiving faxes on. Currently, you can only have the one fax box number by default. Then we got the company directory. It's a download. It just simply downloads a text file. It has all your users with their extension numbers. Right, just easy. If people want that physical sheet just to look at everyone's extension numbers. The soft phone directory is a download link as well. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So you would download this file, and then you would upload it to the desktop soft phone app, and then you can see all your users who have the desktop soft phone app installed, and you can see their status, right? So I can look and see, oh, my coworker Mike, he's on a call right now. I guess I have to hold off on calling him to talk about this, product feature we were supposed to talk about, or that I have a question about. Next up here, we got the store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our web store. And then we've got the account realm. So the account realm is used in a couple things. The first and foremost is that it is used in the programming of devices. And soft phones, third-party soft phones. It's one of the key pieces of information to get those devices to register with your Dash account so you can make and receive calls from them. The other thing that account realm comes into play with is for outbound faxing. So on Dash, to send a fax out, it's currently via email. So you create an email. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, and then the area code and phone number you're faxing to. Right? Then you put the @ symbol, and then you put your account realm. And then in that email, you attach a PDF or a TIFF file and hit send. You don't need to, there's no reason to type in the subject or into the body of the email because none of that information gets transmitted. The system only looks at the PDF or the attachment and tries to fax that out. You can only fax out one attachment per email. If you want a cover sheet on that fax, then you actually need to include that as part of that PDF. All right, up here at the top, you got the caller ID. Now, let's see if the pull down works. Yeah, so you can select any of your main numbers. The pull down here is not working on the streaming software. And this number is essentially becomes your default number for a couple other features, which I'll try to make sure to highlight as we go through. Then we've got the company caller ID name or CNAME information. This can be up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. And this information will then be displayed when your VoIP phone users make an outbound call. Right? We transmit this information along with the caller ID information. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about the CNAME information. It's a two-part process. One, the first part is what we handle, provisioning, right? So we're submitting the information. It goes to all the carriers who support CNAME. It takes like 3 business days for that to update, and that's it as far as what we can control. The other part of CNAME is what's called delivery, I believe. Basically, it's handled by the carrier on the other end of the call. Now, something to keep in mind, when you make an outbound call, whether it's from a cell phone or from a VoIP device or what have you, right, that call can go through several different carriers before it reaches its destination. Not every carrier supports CNAME. So if a call happens to route through one of those carriers, your CNAME information is not going to show up at the destination. Even the carriers who do support it, not high priority, right? So they're having a maintenance issue, probably not going to go through, right? If they're having heavier than expected call volume, that can also impact if your CNAME shows up. And the final thing to remember is that final carrier has the ultimate say in what's going to display on the phone that they're delivering calls to. So like if you're sending calls to a cell phone, right? A lot of cell phone carriers by default don't support CNAME. And the ones who do, it's typically a paid service, something like $10 a month. So for a lot of cell phone carriers or calls to cell phones, right, you'll get your phone number, which should show up. But like if your cell phone carrier decides to say you're a spam risk, they're the ones who decide it's spam, not us, obviously. We won't want that on your phone numbers. So in terms of testing it, you want to make sure you're testing it to like a landline or even another VoIP phone user on like a different service, etc. Cell phones is not the best test, generally speaking, for CNAME. Next up, we've got the company emergency information, or E911. You want to make sure it's a valid address associated with this phone number. And this would be if your VoIP phone user picks up and dials 911, this is the address that is sent to emergency services, right? So, and each phone number on your account you can have with a different address, right? So you can associate it to the right place. Next up, we got hold music. So on Dash, hold music is after a call has reached a user and then they've pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this hold music file will play. You can upload your own, right? You just click on upload, click on browse to find a MP3 or .wav file. And normally you would click open, and then you would click on this up arrow icon here to upload the file. So yeah, .wav, .mp3, you want to record that in mono, not in stereo, because most phones just have one speaker. And then you want to make sure it's under 1 megabyte. A 1 megabyte MP3, for example, is roughly 5 minutes. Once the upload is completed, then you would click on Save Changes. Hours is actually part of main number, so let's just go to main number and go through it all. All right, so up top, we've got the main company numbers. You see all your main numbers here. Now, at the bottom here, you have the option to add some spare numbers, right? So I have spare numbers on this account, so I can add any of these in and put them in use, right, as a main number. Or I can buy new, right? Buy numbers, I can buy local or toll-free. Local number, you would select an area code, for example, and do a search. And then the system will populate numbers that are available on the system. You can add one or more, right? You see the little one there, it's in the cart, shows you the number. I can remove it from the cart if I decide I don't want it after all. Or I can add a different one if I want. And when you do that, I'll show it here for this one. Just click on Buy Numbers. It's actually adding it to your account. It's verifying the number was actually still available. And then saying, okay, it is. Now I'm going to add it to the account and activate it for you. This does take some time. And then you see the number's been added. Now, if you haven't reached your account allotment, right? So let's say you have 15 numbers as part of your plan, and this is only your third or fourth number that you're adding. right? There's no additional charge being here, even though it says it's been purchased or whatnot. It's just being added to your account. Now, one thing to keep in mind is there are many area codes that are exhausted. So we'll do 310, and you'll see this message, hey, we couldn't find any, right? So that's an area code that's exhausted. So at that point, you would want to look up for the overlay for this area code or a nearby area code, right? So the big metropolitan areas, Los Angeles, New York, Toronto, those are all heavily impacted. Usually they have, anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe more these days, area codes. So you might want to try different area codes to see if something's available. If you're dead set on having, say, let's say in this case, a 310 area code phone number, our porting team can attempt to place what's called a back order phone number. There's no guarantee we can get one, and there's no guarantee when we'll get one. It's just basically we put an order out there, said, hey, when a 310 phone number comes available, grab it, right? We do, and once it comes available, we then add it to your account. Toll-free is a little bit easier in that it has all the prefixes here. You just choose the one that you want to work with and take a look and see what you want to add. If you're interested in a vanity toll-free number, right, so it spells something, for that, you're going to want to email our porting team, porting@virtualpbx.com, and just let us know what you want to spell, and then we can do a search for all the toll-free prefixes for that spelling to see if anything's available. Unfortunately, that's not something we can do for local numbers because there's not a really good search parameter for that for whatever reasons. Over here on the right, you got a little gear icon next to the phone number. So here you can update the caller ID information, right? So you can update the outbound CNAM, and you can turn on if you're going to accept inbound CNAM. The E911. So again, you can put the proper address for this location. Prepend is a VoIP feature. So you can add text in front of the caller ID that will show up on your VoIP phone's displays. Right, so this will be helpful for your staff to know, oh, this is about the Nevada promotion versus the New York promotion. Right, office hour strategy. You can be on 24-hour open office, or you can be on custom office hours. If you do choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark. And then in these boxes here to the right, you put your open hours in 24-hour military time. You may not be able to see it on YouTube, but at the bottom here, there's also an option to be closed for lunch. And then you just enter in your lunch hours. Next up, you got office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark up here to the left. And then over to the right, you can click on Add Holiday. And then you have your options for single day, date range, or advanced. Clicking on any of these will create a new row. Oops. And then you simply type in a description in the line in the first box, and then you select the month and the date. Right, so for single day, President's Day. Christmas, for example, we have a date range. So I start on December 23rd and reopen on the 26th. The main thing about date range, since there's no year indicator here, you want to avoid having New Year's Eve and New Year's Day in the same date range. And then if you look here at this retreat example here, this is an example of an advanced holiday where I'm saying the first Friday in July, we're just closed, right? Company picnic day. For this pull down, it shows like first through fourth as well as last as your options. All right, incoming call handling. This is the big kahuna. So for my main company numbers, right, so I had 4 of them up here now. During my open hours, what am I going to have the calls do, right? So here I'm having calls go to my virtual receptionist. So if we click on this, I open it up. On my left, this is the main menu, right? So this is what people press on their phone to navigate through the phone system. Over here on the right, we've got your greetings. This is where you tell people what to do, right? You probably say thank you for calling. You can include things like special promotions, your hours of operations, directions to a location, etc. But the main thing you want to make sure to do is tell people what to press, right? 1 for sales, 2 for support, etc. Or give them the extension numbers if you don't think they will have them. And then we have these settings here, which we'll get into shortly. Now, if you're on a new account, you won't have anything here. So you'll have to start by clicking on Add Route. It gives you a new row, and then you have a pull down. You've got the default route, star, and then 0 through 9 to choose from, and then you have a location to choose from. So we'll go from here. Smart PBX directory, right? So they can look up the person they want to talk to. You can send it to a specific person, right? One of your users. You can send it to a call queue if you're making use of ACD queues. You can send it to a specific phone, right? So like a cell phone here, etc. Now this is not generally recommended, just because if there's no voicemail associated with that device, then the call just will end eventually, right? You can have it play a media file, right? So play a second greeting. Also, typically not recommended because once the media file stops playing, then the call ends. Right? The system will say goodbye at the end of the media file. You can send it to a group. Green groups are a type of department. Advanced call flows. This is if you're going to make use of submenuing, you can do that here, as well as send it to a voicemail box. Greetings, text to speech, right? You simply text in a greeting, you click update, you scroll down and click save, and then save changes. The text to speech greeting, it's about 350 to 400 characters is the maximum. The more complicated you make the greeting, the less characters you can have. Now this I generally recommend for people who have never used a PBX system before, or for a startup company, or both. Basically, as you're trying to figure out how exactly you want calls to flow through your system, right? Because there's no charge, it's pretty quick and easy to change. Upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Right? Choose file, find the file on your computer, and upload, or update rather here. Choose from existing recordings. This will show you the pull down of all your existing recordings. You can select from there. Record it over the phone. Now the main thing is when it says a registered phone on the account, by default this means a VoIP phone on the account. Now if you want to record from, let's say, a cell phone or a landline, let's say you have a good friend who's got that like great radio voice, and you're like, yeah, I want to use that, and they agree to do so, but they don't have a VoIP phone, right, on your account. What you would do is you would go down here to on the bottom where it says settings, and under allow outside recording, you would click on that to turn that on. Click save and save changes. Now, when you have outside recording turned on, now you're saying cell phone or landline callers can call in and record it over the phone. Right? That person is going to need to know your main number, right? Needs to ring to the virtual receptionist, and then they're going to need to know this PIN number. Now, this PIN number is only good during this time of day, right? So my open hours, right? So if I wanted to record my holiday greeting, I need to make sure my system's in holiday mode to record it over the phone. Now, if you've just started up, right, or you just signed up with us, you probably don't have a greeting in place, so you can just call in, and the system will say that a menu for this, or a greeting for this menu has not been recorded. You can enter in the PIN number, and then the system will walk you through recording over the phone. If you already have a greeting in place, and then you call in to record over the phone, you're going to overwrite the existing recording or existing greeting, right? So greeting A is what you have selected playing. You call in, you enter in the PIN number, you record a new greeting. Greeting A file name stays the same, but the content you just completely overwrote. So if you wanted to keep the original greeting file A, you'd probably want to unassign it first, put in something else, and then record over the phone. Professional recording services. When you click order, this will take you to a website hosted by Snap Recordings, who we've partnered with. They have 80 to 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, Spanish, and French. So you can do multilingual greetings, or you can decide to have, a UK English greeting, even though you're based in the US, if you wanted to do that. They also have what they refer to as hold treatment, so a music file and then a script being read. They handle their own billing, right, via credit card. They deliver typically via email, so then you can just upload your own file. They also have express service, so you can have quicker delivery. That's something you want to look into. And then we got the settings. So number of retries on missed dial, I have it set at 2. So basically this means the inbound caller, they can mess up 3 times total, right? Because they get the first try, right? And then now I'm giving them 2 additional tries after the first try. So like if they keep pressing 5, after that third option, it's going to send them to my default route. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits to listen for additional button presses, right? So I call in and I press 5. If I don't press another digit after 1 second, right, because that's the 1 indicates there, then the system says, oh, you're trying to go to 5, which is not a valid option. It'll tell you invalid entry. We already covered the outside recording. Allow dialing extensions, right? So basically you're saying if the inbound caller knows the extension number they're trying to reach, they can enter it at any time. That's what this allows you to do. If you turn this off, then they can only press your menu options, right? They can't hit an extension number and get there. One thing to keep in mind about the default route, that's a way for robocallers to get into your system and take up minutes on your plan. So that's something to be aware of. So if you don't want to deal with that, you can just make sure you don't have a default route. Some people like that, some people don't, just because they want call. The reason to have a default route would be if you don't want your inbound callers to have to press the menu option just to get them to somewhere. That's why you would have a default route in play. Now, if you make any changes on your main menu or your greetings or these settings, you click on Save Here. And then you also need to click Save Changes here under Incoming Call Handling. All right. Next up, this is the live operator option, right? So your basically call is coming to Bob. If he doesn't answer, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. This virtual receptionist is the same one we were just looking at. All right, same options, same greeting, etc. But basically, this is a pull down, so you can select different users. Right, you can select call queues, a device. I think you can, media file and ring groups. As well as advanced call flows. So, but basically the main point is you're giving a staff member or multiple staff members a chance to answer the call. If they're not able to, then the caller goes to the virtual receptionist so they can enter in an extension or a menu option, excuse me. Not sure why I'm spacing out there. All right, third option, call comes in, again, offering it to Bob. If Bob's not able to pick up, goes to voicemail. This has those same options plus one additional one, which is at the very bottom, which is skip to voicemail. So in this particular scenario, like call and skip it to voicemail, I typically see that on the holiday menu, right? To say, hey, we're closed, send all the callers to voicemail. This option here is with the advanced call flows. Essentially, I'm sending it to a different auto attendant. If this is the long-term, like if this is temporary, I can understand that. Long-term, though, it would make more sense to change sample A and make it your virtual receptionist. And then whatever's on your virtual receptionist, if that's not what you're actually going to be using as your main numbers, then put that on your other auto attendant. And we'll get into that shortly. Holidays tab, you have the same option, right? You can send it to the virtual receptionist. When you click on it, this virtual receptionist is different, right? Because each one is a different time of day, so to speak, right? But you're probably going to have a different message for your holidays or during your after hours or during your lunch hours than you would during your open hours, right? So then you get different menu options. You would have a different greeting. All right, main commerce number. If you click here, you can unassign a number. You can add additional numbers via your spare numbers, or just by numbers, right? Local or toll free. You have a custom greeting here. This is actually a text-to-speech greeting. If you click enable, you can type in text you want and click save. Even if you don't have the custom greeting, when someone calls this conference number, they hear a message, welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. All right, main fax box number, you can only have the one. Right, so if there was none here, you can either add from spare or buy new. And then you can click on edit fax box. Now on this account, the fax box is broken. On your account, when you click edit fax box, a box will pop up with two fields. The first field you can enter is for an email address for the inbound notification. Meaning when an inbound fax comes in, that email address gets notified, hey, you have a new fax. And there's an attachment in that email, so they can just double click it, and it's a PDF, so they can view the fax. Now, also for that inbound notification, if someone dials your fax number, right, and hears the fax tones and hang up, you'll likely get an email saying you had a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, it could be a legit failure, like someone tried to fax a document into you and it didn't go through. So that's something you would have to verify with whoever was trying to fax to you, if it's a number you recognize. The second field in that fax box is for outbound permissions. So you could put an email address there, and that person can fax out. Or, for instance, if you own your company email domain, right? So abccleaners.com, right? All your staff members have an email address that ends that way. You can add that domain in that second field. And so then anyone at your company can send a fax out, even if they're not a user on Bash. Right? So you've got Joey the intern, and you want him to fax stuff out, or her. I guess Joey can be a girl thing too. Sorry. Right? You just have him or her create an email with that +1 area code and phone number, @ account realm, and attach the PDF. And you don't have to add them as a user to your account. All right, auto attendance. Now this is on specific plans that allows for multiple auto attendance. This is something you're interested in. You're going to want to talk to our account services team. There's a couple use cases for multiple auto attendance. The first, and probably the most common, is if you have multiple businesses that have their own phone numbers and you want to have they have their own main greetings, but the calls go to the same staff members, right? So you've got 3 different small businesses going, but they're all calling to you because you're a one-man show, but you got 3 businesses, or a one-woman show, pardon me. So in that case, you would want multiple attendants, so that way each of your businesses, right, has their own unique phone number and their own unique main greeting. The other use case I already touched on is for sub-menuing. So for instance, on your main virtual receptionist, when calls come in, your main greeting, you say, press 1 for English and press 2 for Spanish. Well, on a typical virtual receptionist, right, 1 and 2 just goes to a destination, right, a phone, a ring group, a user, etc. With sub-menuing, what you're doing is when you have 1 and 2, you're actually sending them to a separate menu, right, separate auto attendant, where they have another greeting play, right? So 1 would go to an English greeting, 2 would go to a Spanish greeting. They would give menu options, and in this case, right, when people press 1 first, they're going to end up to an English-speaking staff member and or voicemail box, whereas if they press 2, they're going to end up with a Spanish-speaking staff member and go to a voicemail box that has a greeting in Spanish. So those are the 2 use cases for multiple auto attendants. Now, to add an auto attendant, up here at the top, you click Add Attendant. And you click on here and you give it a name, and then you give it an extension number, right? The system is prompting me with extension 1012 because that's available, but you can enter in any number you want. And then you click on Create Attendant. Now, once an attendant is created, you can click on the name here, right? You can you have this option here, unavailable in main menu. If I leave it like this means I'm saying this is a standalone attendant, meaning its own business, right? So it's going to have its own name greeting, it's going to have its own phone number, right? Which it does. If I go up here to sample A, you'll see this one is available in the main menu, meaning it can be a submenu option in any of my other auto attendants. You got a phone numbers box here, which you can add numbers to, right? You can either add from spare or buy a new. You can always click on the extension here to edit the extension number or unassign or add a new one. And then you can click on the little wrench icon here under settings. And you'll see, hey, here's my virtual receptionist for this one. If you click on it, you'll see it has its own menu options. It'll have its own greeting and its own settings. Now, you notice there's also holidays. If you have custom office hours, so you have open hours and after hours, these auto attendants here follow those settings under the main number, right? So for holidays, right, it's going to have the same holidays that I already have set up under main number. That's something to keep in mind. So if you have an instance where you have separate, these other businesses, but you want one business open only Monday through Friday, and your second business is open Tuesday through Sunday, right? Then you either need to have some custom work done to the account, which may involve having a one-time fee, or you may want to actually look at having a separate account for that other business, so they have two different schedules. All right, devices. So these are all the devices on your account. Green means it's connected, meaning it's registered. We can send calls to and from that device. Red means it's unregistered, so we're not able to send calls to it. Black means you've disabled it, right? You've turned it off. You can add devices here by clicking up here at the top, add devices. First up, we got flip phone. So this is that physical VoIP phone, sits on a person's desk. And then you're looking for these manufacturers. And then you can click on a particular manufacturer and look at the models available. And we'll go over here to Cisco. You would select the phone model. Then you give it a name, right? So you can say Angela's phone. And then you can enter in a MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device, right? Typically a sticker on the back of the phone or on the bottom of the phone, depending on how it's constructed. But also if the phone's plugged in, typically under its menu and status or basic settings, there should be an option for MAC address. That's the information you'd want to copy down and put here. And then you would click on create device, and then you assign the device to one of your users. Now, within this dashboard, you're done. However, you do need to log into the phone's web user interface, web UI, and enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go to this website and get your config file. For the specifics of the devices, you're going to want to go to the dash support pages. So go to VirtualPBX.com, mouse over support, select dash support, then scroll down and over on the right-hand side. Some days I have trouble talking. Under VoIP devices, you're looking for the guide called Auto Provisioning Phones. It will have screenshots. It will have the specific URL, what you're supposed to type in. And depending on the phone model, there might be some additional checkboxes or settings you may have to verify. But then within the phone, you would click on Update, and then usually something like Auto Provision Now. Basically what it does, the phone goes to the URL that you specified, it gets its config file, it then reboots, usually a couple times. But then it should show up as a green device on the account. And then you can make and receive calls from it. You can also, because you've auto-provisioned the phone, you can make use of a lot of the features that are built into the phone. Now, if your phone didn't actually show up on the SIP phone list, then what you want to do is select soft phone. Here's a little warning message about wireless technology, wireless and VoIP technology. Click close. And again, give it a device name. You're going to want to copy and the SIP username. You click on the SIP password box so you can copy that, and then the account realm. These three pieces of information you will need to program a third-party VoIP phone, usually under the line information. We do have some guides available for manually provisioning a phone or third-party provisioning. But unfortunately, we don't have guides for that many just because there's too many phone manufacturers, much less individual models that may vary between a specific manufacturer. Likewise, you would use this if you're going to use a soft phone application, say from Counterpath, or what is it, VoIP is out there as well. There's a bunch of others. There's a ton actually. Since we're here, if you wanted to use a VirtualPBX soft phone app, then instead of copying and pasting all this, where it says use third-party application here, it's grayed out. You want to click on that, and it flips it to say use VirtualPBX application. So you would give it a name, like we probably should have mentioned that on the first page, and then you assign it to a staff member. You click on Create Device. Now, for the VirtualPBX soft phone, once you click on Create Device and you've assigned it to a user, then that user will get an email with their new login information for the soft phone app. Now, if they're going to use this on their cell phone, right, so Android or iOS or iPhone, right, they go to the relevant app store, they look up VPBX phone, download that app, they use the login information to log into the app, and they're ready to go. If you want to use the desktop version, right, so you want to use the soft phone on a Mac or a Windows PC, you are going to need to go through to the web store, right, the online store here, and you need to order the desktop version. There's a license fee associated with it. And I believe actually our Flex plans include a desktop soft phone. You probably want to verify that with account services. But there is a license fee associated typically with the desktop soft phone. So you order that through the web store, and then you'll get a download link and a license key. All right, cell phone and landline are pretty much the same. So you would give it a name, and then you put the phone number. Now, it is important. You have to put the plus sign and the number 1, then area code and phone number, and then you assign it to a staff member, and then you click on Create Device. Now, when you add, or when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or a landline, right, what happens is that phone will ring, right? You pick up, you're going to hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. You have to do this very quickly, but when you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you were there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? So if it's actually going to your phone, your cell phone, you probably do want that so you know, hey, well, it's a work call, right? It's a good indicator. But then you also have the option that does not take the call, so it goes to voicemail. Now, if instead you're actually using cell phone or landline notation to actually send a call to, say, an automated answering service for, say, your after hours, then pressing 1 is not an option because it's an automated answering service. So what you would want to do is click on the little wrench icon and get to the advanced settings of the phone and click on the box in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So when you do that, then the call is still offered to the device, but there's no longer that message of pressing 1 to accept the call. Instead, when Dash hears that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right, so then your automated answering service can take over and handle the call. Now, if you did this on your actual cell phone, for example, and your cell phone voicemail picks up, right, that's still a connected call, so that inbound caller ends up on your cell phone's voicemail. Some people do not want that whatsoever. Other people, that's exactly what they want. So your mileage may vary on that. The other thing to keep in mind here is the second one here. Keep original caller ID. So we'll say customer John is calling in, and call goes to your cell phone. You look at it on your cell phone's display. You see a phone number you don't recognize. Right? I don't know who that is. It's probably someone offering me an extended car warranty again. So you let it go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to connect with John later, or maybe he's already moved on to one of your competitors. So what you can do instead is you can uncheck this, right? So uncheck keep original caller ID. So what happens then is the phone number that shows up on your display is your main company number, right? If we go back to the dashboard here real quick, hopefully. Under caller ID, this is that phone number that would show up on my phone's display. So now I know, oh, just by looking at the caller ID, this is a work call, I can take it. Oh, and then web phone, again, you get that wireless VoIP warning. You give it a name, you assign it to a user, you click on create device, right? So now that user can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net and it asks for login information, and it's the same login information that you use to log into Dash, right? So same email address, same password, same account name. All right, greetings manager. This shows all your greetings on the account. The name, the source, TTS, shorthand for text to speech. Recording means you recorded it over the phone. Upload means you uploaded the file. You can download the file to listen to it to see if it's still relevant. If you click on the little wrench icon, you can change the name so it's something more recognizable than this. Or if it's something not relevant any longer, you can delete the greeting altogether. So I can just click on that, confirm, and now it's gone, and I have one less greeting. Up here at the top, you can add, right? So you can give it a name and find the file, .wave.mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, and then click on create greeting. Groups, shorthand for ring groups. These are departments. You can click add group. You give it a name and extension number, and then you click and drag the staff members you want to be in the group. And then you click on create group. So once a group's created, you can click on the name. Right, you can always change the name. And then you've got the group call attempt. What this is how many times the inbound caller can ring through to your staff members. Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase or decrease that as you need to. Next step, if we've got the members box. Up here, we've got timestamps. And up here, this last box, you can edit this. So default for a new group is 120 seconds. You can change it to be 60 seconds or 100 seconds or 500 seconds, what have you. You can add additional users down here. You can remove people here. You also have this option here to distribute. So this will make the call ring in order, right? So Mia, Jan, Novadar, Jean. If I want to change the order, right? I'm like, oh, nope, Michael's an ace. I want to put him up top. Mia's got some other duties I need to have her concentrate on, etc. Then I can click distribute again. So now I just change the order. Right, now these are all sliders. So I can do things like this so I can have more overlap, right? Or that original setting where I had everyone ringing for the full time, which was blast ringing. So those are the routing options for groups. Extensions, groups can have multiple extension numbers. Right? They can also have their own phone numbers, right? Either add for spare or buy new. And then we've got the group features. So ringback, this is hold music for the group, right? So if you enable this, you can upload a .wave.mp3 recorded in mono file. You want to make sure this file, the duration of it matches your ring duration of the group. The system will not automatically loop the file for you. So, right, we had a default here of 120 seconds. So I want to make sure my ringback file plays for 120 seconds. If, for instance, my media file only plays for 60 seconds, after that, the system treats it like the call ended and either puts it back on a new attempt if you have multiple attempts going through, or it will go to the next action, which I have enabled. And basically you say, hey, no one picks up, send the call to, in this case, I'm sending it to a voicemail box, but you can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to one of your other auto attendants. You can send it to a call queue, a device, a user, or another group, as well as voicemail boxes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding so they can send calls to a second or backup device, right? So like, oh, I'm not going to be at my normal desk phone, just send it to my cell phone. Caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text in front of the caller ID or numbers in front of the caller ID. Right? It gives your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. So some things to keep in mind. Groups, your users can make use of or answer calls from VoIP phones or landlines or cell phones. Right? Groups can have both extensions and a phone number. However, you're limited in the terms of like the types of routing that your group can have. Additionally, so say first call comes in and Mia answers the call. And while she's on that call, a second calls in, she's going to hear a call waiting beep until, let's say, Jean answers the phone. Right, so now Mia and Jean are both on a call. A third call comes in, they both hear a call waiting beep until John here answers that third call. Right, so that's something to keep in mind. Additionally, your staff members can't log out of a group. Right, they're in it, they're always in it. Right, so the only way to not get a group call is if an admin comes in and removes them from the group. Right. So I bring these up just because ACD queues are an advanced version of groups, but there are some caveats there, so just keep these things in mind. Next up, we've got numbers. Right, these shows your numbers on the account and where they're going. These red ones here are just routing porting attempts that haven't completed. You can always click on the gear icon here for any of the phone numbers, so you can adjust that, the caller ID and E91, etc. Your spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using. If you want to get rid of these numbers because you're trying to reduce your bill, then what you would want to do is click on the box in front of the number, and then you now have the option here to delete. You can delete these numbers. This says yes, you have, and now they're removed, so I've saved money on my bill. Up here, you can always buy a number here, right? So it would just be added to your spare numbers. If you click port, this will start a port request. You just give it a name, check local or toll free, and then it's going to ask you to upload a bill, right? A PDF. So like I can on that. And then you're going to need to fill out this additional information. Basically, you're going to be following the on-screen steps to complete the port request. Now, later on in the port request, there's an option to download a blank letter registry, or LOA, and then later upload a completed and signed LOA. Now, on the LOA, it asks you for company information, right? Company name, address. That information should match what your current carrier has on file, right? So porting means you're moving a phone number from, say, AT&T to VirtualPBX. And so on the LOA, your company information and address should match what AT&T has on file for that phone number. Right. Now, it does ask for a signature. It can be a digital signature, but you simply cannot type your name in both, the person authorizing and then authorized signature. You just can't type your name in both fields. If you are porting a mobile number or cellular phone number, typically speaking, those phone numbers have what's called an account PIN number, anywhere from 4 to 8 digits long. That's something you typically have to contact the carrier to get, and that's just a security feature to make sure your cell phone number isn't just randomly ported away. When you do port a cell phone number away, just realize that that cell phone that number is associated with will stop working once the port completes. right? Because there's no longer a number associated with that device. So you might want to have either a backup phone number if you want to keep using that cell phone, or you can then ditch it since you're no longer going to be using it. Porting a local number can take anywhere from a day to 3 weeks on average. The typical is between that 2 to 3 week range. The 1 day I've seen mostly come about for Google Voice phone numbers, especially if they've already been unlocked. Toll-free numbers typically take 3 to 5 business days, assuming there's nothing wrong. If we do get a problem, right? So we get what's called a rejection notice from the other carrier. It's not very specific, right? It'll say address mismatch or unauthorized user, something to that nature. We will then pass that information on to you, but we're not going to. They don't tell us that, oh, you missed a digit on the street address, or you flipped the zip code digits. They're not going to give us that level of detail. They're just going to say, hey, the address was wrong. At that point, we typically double check to make sure we didn't typo anything, right? So if we did, then we just resubmit. But if everything matches the documentation we have, then we let you know, and so then you're going to have to talk to that carrier and find out what the information is supposed to be. Users, this is where you would add additional users. The little gray person, that's your standard user. Person in a blue suit is an admin. And if you click on add user, you fill out the form basically, right? You put in their first and last name. The email address used for login is unique to each user, right? So you can't reuse like support@virtualpbx.com for 5 people as a user. They each would have to have their own. You then create a password for them, and then you enter an extension number for them. Now this system is telling me the next available extension is 1012, right? I can back that out and type in 2310 or whatever I want. Create voicemail box for the user. This will be intrinsically tied to the user, so that's why it's checked. You can decide to put them in the company directory right away or do that later. Send email to an alternate address, and then you put in that address here. This will supersede this email address, the login email address, when it comes to like voicemail delivery, or if you're doing that like a soft phone, the email for the username and password. If you have alternate address enabled, it's going to go to that address. It will not go to the login address. And then lastly, send credentials to the user, i.e. it sends an email with their username and password. If you only need to create one person, you click on create user. If you need to add more, create user and add another. Once you've created a user, you can click on their name. You can change their name here. You can also click on change credentials, so you can change their email address or password. You also have the option here to send the password reset email, right? So let's say Bob and I are completely different wavelengths when it comes to passwords, and he never remembers a password I create for him. So here, click here, create your own. The voicemail box pin, you can change a user's voicemail box pin temporarily. Typically, you would need to do this for your cell phone or landline users. For your VoIP phone users, right, if you kept the box checked for create the voicemail box for the user, then they can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98, that logs them directly into that voicemail box. And the first time they do that, the system will then prompt them to enter in a PIN number, create a PIN number for that voicemail box, as well as to create their voicemail greeting. Right here, you got the option to send an alternate address, and also to put in or remove from the company directory. Over here on the right, user, this is a pull down. You can make a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Next up, we got the pull down for the time zone, and just search for a major city that you want to refer to. Here we got the display language, right? So this is what language the web pages will display for this user. You got English, French, German, and Russian. The ringing time, by default, it's 20 seconds, which is typically fine for a landline or a VoIP phone. 45 to 60 seconds is typically what you would want for a cell phone user. So a quick explanation about routing calls to those devices. So call comes into the PBX system, or any PBX system, right? And then it needs to route to a landline, right? We send the call out to that landline telecom. They say, oh, we know where that is, sends the call, right? Versus call comes in, we need to send it to a cell phone, right? We send it to the cell provider. They said, hold on a second, we need to find them first, right? Pings the cell phone towers, finds you, says, all right, send the call. It's that delay is why you will need more time or more ringing time for calls going to a cell phone than you would to, say, a landline. All right. Users can have multiple extensions. Right. You also have the option here to add phone numbers to a user, right? Either add from spare or buy new. Even if a user has a phone number, right, you can still add from spare or buy new numbers for them. Here we've got devices, and you can add new devices here, right? Same options as before. If you have devices you're not using, like let's say, like someone left the company or they're not using a particular VoIP phone anymore because they're not in the office, you can then unassign it from one user and then assign it back to another user. I personally find it easier to add the VirtualPBX soft phone and the web phone directly on the user page versus on the devices page, but that's just a personal thing. And then we got the features box. So caller ID number, this only comes into play if they have their own phone number. Basically, you click it on and you say, hey, this is the phone number that shows up when I make an outbound call from my VoIP devices. Right? If this is not selected, then it would go back to the main number, right, under the dashboard. Call forwarding, you've got off, on, and failover mode. Off, you're not using it. On means send calls, and I specify the device. Now, this is for the admins to set up here. However, call forwarding is something your users can set up themselves. They can do this via the user portal or from their VoIP phone if they know the right feature codes, which I don't remember off the top of my head. But generally speaking, when you're forwarding, you're sending it to a device that's not on your user, right? Something you only use periodically, right? Your devices that are on your user, those are something you're typically using every day, right? Forwarding should be something you only use sporadically. Now, failover mode, this is for your VoIP phone users, right? So when the system detects your phone gets unregistered and a call happens to be coming to your user at that time, it will automatically forward the calls to, in this case, a mobile phone, right? So I can still take the call, but then after that call, I can say, what happened to my VoIP phone? Right? Did I lose internet? Did my dog just, run by the router and knock it off? Whatever. Hot desking is also a VoIP-based feature. When enabled, you would create or enter a hot desk ID. So, right, 4 digits, just make it fairly simple for your staff members. If you use 4-digit extensions, I would just say make it their extension number. Then you would click on Save Changes. So this is for an office environment where people may switch desks from day to day or from days that they're in, right? So these days we still have a lot of people working remotely. So you might have staff members come in on Monday and Thursday, and then other staff members come in on Tuesday and Friday, etc. So in hot desk, they might be at a different desk on each one of those days. Hot desking, you come in, sit at desk number 7, you enter *11 on the VoIP phone, right? The system will ask you for your hot desk ID. You enter that. If you selected to have a PIN number, then they will be prompted for the PIN. And then the system will say calls will be sent to this device. So that for the rest of the day, while I'm sitting at desk number 7, any calls to my user will ring to that phone I'm sitting at. The end of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12, that turns off hot desking, and I go home. So the next day I will have to go into the office. I come in and say Susie's already sitting at desk number 7. I'm like, hey Susie, what's up? Hey, maybe high five or a fist bump, whatever. And I move on to desk number 42. Sit down. I do the same thing. Hit *11, enter in my hot desk ID, and calls will be sent to me at that desk. Voicemail box, already enabled. Since it was created with the user, you can do some other options here, like I've got transcription available as an option. Voicemail to email, typically by default, is enabled. And attach messages to the email, right? So that way I have a .mp3 file attached to my voicemail notifications. Typically, also what is done is delete message from the database after that notification is sent. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages, which is why you might want to do that. Fax box, you can have a user have their own fax box. Now you can add from spare numbers, add new numbers, or you can assign an extension. If you choose to assign an extension, you need to find an extension that's not already in use. And then you can click on Save Changes. Now, this requires that the person who's faxing to you, right, dials your main number. They hear the greeting. Then they enter my fax extension, and then they click Send Fax. Right, that's not going to be workable for everyone who's faxing to you, because some people just use email to fax services, and not all of them allow faxing to extensions. Even some fax machines may not be that easy for them to fax to an extension. And that's on top of someone who's like my age, who's just, when I go to a fax machine, I enter the number, I hit send fax, and I walk away, go get coffee, or go back to my desk, whatever. So in my opinion, faxing to an extension has more hurdles than it's worth. So I would suggest using either a spare number or a new number. So that way, just enter in that phone number and you're good to go. Conference Bridge, first you enable it. So now this user can host a conference. And then the only thing as an admin you need to do is enter in a personal PIN number and then click Save Changes. Now, your users can change their PIN numbers for the conference via the user portal. This is not a good user for Follow Me. Let us click out of that. So Follow Me is good for users with multiple devices. So we'll go use Jan here. Actually, wait a minute. Yeah, okay. So first you enable it, and then this is how it looks like. So you need to tell the system what devices is Jan going to use. You uncheck them both. Then up here you've got the total ring time, 120 seconds. So I can click distribute, right? Just like the ring groups, right? I can change the order, and these are sliders, so I can do something like that too. Pretty straightforward. And then Save Changes. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music. You would just enable it. You upload a .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click the upload icon and then Save Changes. Customize call recording. If you enable it, then you need to decide the kinds of calls you're recording. Right. So inbound internal means, say, coworker Gene, right, is calling. You can choose to record that. Inbound external, that would be a customer calling. Right. Outbound internal would be Jan is calling Gene back, and then outbound external means Jan is calling a customer back. So you can leave it like that. So these are the calls that we're going to record, and click on Save. And then do not disturb basically the user calls go to that user will go to voicemail. All right, voicemail boxes. So here you'll see all your voicemail boxes, right? The ones that are associated with users will have a entry here under the user field. You can create your own voicemail box, right? Or manually created or standalone. You just give it a name, voicemail box number, and PIN number. Click on Create New Voicemail Box. Once you've created a voicemail box like that, or actually for any of the voicemail boxes, you can click on the little wrench icon, right? So you can review the name, the voicemail box number, and the PIN number. If you go to Advanced, especially for the manually created voicemail boxes, right? You can either upload a media file, right? You can always call in to your system so if your main number rings to the virtual receptionist, right, then you can always call in and hit *97 when you hear that main greeting. The system will then ask you for the voicemail box number, right? So that would be this, and then the PIN number, and then personal options, I believe, is number 3. So then you can record a greeting over the phone, right? Otherwise, you can always just upload a file or choose from an existing media file. Now, the media file right here, this is the default greeting that plays for the voicemail box. The temporary file, this is for like the out of office or vacation voicemail greeting. So when you have something selected here, it will supersede the media file. And then once you put temporary back to none, then the media file will play. Recipients. Now, for your user voicemail boxes, they already have one recipient. Right? That the email used for login, that email address automatically gets any email that comes to the voicemail box. But since this voicemail box I created manually, I would need to add a recipient and then add an email address here and click add. So then once a manually created voicemail box has a greeting media file and recipient or recipients, then you would want to look at options. You would then click on already set up, and it's good to go. And then you would want to double check. Do you want to delete after notification? You definitely want the attached messages to email, typically speaking, and then save changes. Now, if your staff members prefer to log in over the phone to listen to their voicemail, or go through the user portal, or they're just good about maintaining their voicemail boxes, you can uncheck these if you want to, right? Or you can leave the attached voicemail so that way the email is always a backup, but they can still log into the portal or over the phone. All right, next up we've got advanced routing. So here we've got direct inward system access. DISA is what we refer to it as. If you enable this, this will allow someone from a cell phone or landline to call into your system, log in over the phone, and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, it's not their cell phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID, but your main number. Right. So to enable, click enable. You click edit settings. I usually suggest adding an extension number, right? And then click save changes. So now for my cell phone, I can call into my main number, right? Go to the virtual receptionist. I then enter this extension number. The system will then prompt me for this PIN number. Then I'll hear dial tone again, and then I can enter in the area code and phone number I'm reaching out to. Now, and once I call that number, instead of my cell phone number showing up as the outbound caller ID, right, it's this phone number over here that shows up. Now, for new signups, this is currently not enabled right off the bat. It's something that you do have to send in a request for. And that's just because it's a potential way for people to commit fraud on your account, right? If they're able to figure out the PIN number and the extension, don't know how they would figure out both, but it's possible, right? They can then make outbound calls on your account, and you may not notice it right away unless you're like always looking at your call logs. Speaking of the call logs, this shows your call history, right? This little arrow to the left, that means that's an outbound call. Little green arrow to the right means that's an inbound call. And you click on it, you can get some greater details, saying that, oh, it was offered to this web phone. Also to a cell phone, etc. And then the normal clearing tells you that the call ended normally. Right, lose race means that he picked up on the web phone versus the cell phone. You can download the file, it's a CSV. You can also do custom, so you can do your own date ranges. One thing to keep in mind is if you're doing a search, you want to make sure you keep scrolling down. See how it's loading more? Go down some more. So now I'm at the bottom, right? So of this, the whole month. Now is when I would want to do a search because now it's going to view that whole record. Right? If I didn't keep scrolling down, it would only search in that first section, which may not be that useful. Feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these, specifically the hot desking ones. But basically, from your VoIP phones, typically, you can make use of these feature codes to use other features. These are also published on the VirtualPBX support site, right? So mouse over support, go to dash support. There is a feature codes document. There's also a phone commands cheat sheet, which is a little bit more compressed, and you can get them all on one page. It's a PDF. But basically, these are other additional features you can make use of from your VoIP phones. All right, so we've been on the dashboard the whole time. So now we're going over to ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. There's two kinds of queues. There are these that we're looking at, the standard ACD queues. There's also ACD queues Pro. Both types have an additional fee associated with them. I believe the standard ACD queues are either $15 or $30 per month. The ACD queues Pro, I believe, start at $99 per month. That may change depending on your plan. So if you're interested in queues, you're going to want to double check with our account services team just to verify what it's going to cost you before you dive into it. I don't want you to get sticker shock after the fact. So, as I mentioned before, queues are an advanced form of groups. However, there are a couple things to keep in mind. One, currently on queues, your staff members can only accept calls with a VoIP device, right? So web phone, soft phone, or SIP phone, right? Physical VoIP phone, right? They cannot currently accept calls with a cell phone or a landline. That tends to be the biggest hang up for most people. Now, if you're interested in a queue, you would click on Add a Queue or Add New Queue. I'm just going to click on the gear icon here for this one. So you give it a queue name, and then you can choose either a phone number or an extension. Right? One or the other. You can't have both. Then under configuration, you've got routing strategy, and unfortunately the pull down is not working. So basically, you've got under standard queues, you've got ring all, right? So everyone rings at the same time. You've got round robin, which will equalize out over time. Most idle means the call goes to the person who's been waiting for the call the longest. You have least offers, so whoever's had the least amount of calls offered to them, right? So Bob's been offered 20 calls, Mary's been offered 5. Mary gets the next call that comes in, right? And then least calls, that's least amount of connected calls. So let's say Bob's spoken to 2 out of the 20 calls. Mary's spoken to all 5 out of her 5 that were offered to her. Under least calls, the next call comes in, goes to Bob, because he's only talked to 2 people. Now, let's say Danny logs in, a couple hours after Mary and Bob have already been in. Then under least calls and least offers, he's probably getting the next call, because they most likely have already had those, 5 and 20. Or 5 and, yeah. All right, hold treatment. You can upload .wav.mp3 recorded into mono file. Under ACD Queues Pro, you actually have more options for the hold treatment. You can have things like announce their wait in line, or announce their position in line, announce their approximate wait time. You can have multiple greeting media files play as well. Queue timeout. This is how much time people can wait on hold, right? So inbound callers can wait on hold. The queue call limit. This is the number of people who can wait on hold. Now, this is on top of people who are already speaking to your staff members. right? So if Bob and Mary are already talking to inbound callers, 4 more people can wait on hold. Now, timeout immediately if empty, if this is enabled. This means if I have no staff members logged in and an inbound call comes in, treat that call as if it already hit the timeout. All right, escalation queue. Basically, if all your staff members are busy, then that inbound call can be sent to a second queue. And then escalation queue after timeout, sending it to a voicemail in this case, but you have all these options, right? I can send it back. I can just end the call, right? So there's no call flow. I can send it to another attendant. I can send it to a specific phone. I can send it to my user directory. I can send it to one of my ring groups. I can have a media file play, which again would just end after that file is played. I can send it to a specific user or to a voicemail box. Now this comes into play right after this 3,600 seconds. Now, say a call comes in, it actually went to this second queue, right? The system still keeps track of the timer of the first queue that the call came into. So once this 3,600 second timer expires, even if that call is in the second queue, that caller will be sent to this voicemail box because they started in this queue first. All right, over here, agent behavior. Agent recovery time, usually 0 to 30 seconds. Basically, after Bob is done with a call, the system will wait 30 seconds before it offers him another call from the queue, or from this queue. Force away on rejected or missed. If this is enabled, if my staff member misses a call, then the system will automatically put them in away mode until they actively mark themselves as ready. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. Default is 20 seconds because that's plenty of time for a VoIP phone. And then you would click on save changes. So once you've created a queue, you'd probably want to go to the members, or you can start with members, really. I don't think it matters. So right here, this is my list of people who can be in any queue, right? They're not necessarily in all my queues, but they're available. It's a common pool that the queues can draw from. Then you click on manage members. Now these are staff members who are not yet in queues at all. These are my queue members. If I wanted to add someone, I just click on their name. And then I could add them as members. Now it's saying one of my people is actually a call center pro person, so I should not migrate them. And there you see the person I just added. And we can move him back. So once you have your members assigned as a call center member, right, you could go back to queues. If you click on a queue, you would add agents. And so then now you would click and drag your staff members that you want to be in that queue. And then you would click on save changes. Once you've added agents, you can then add managers, right? So basically you click and drag them over, or click them back if you want them to just be standard agents. All right, so now once your agents have been added or assigned to queues, they would log into dash.virtualpbx.com, and then they would click on ACD queues. Then here, they click on begin session. So you notice I'm in 2 queues here. And if we click on this one here, you'll see that I'm red because I'm marked away, right? When I'm ready to take calls, I just mark all as ready. And so now I turn green. If I take an inbound call, then I'll be blue. If I'm marked away, I'm red, obviously. If I'm on the wrap-up time, I'm on, I think it's gold. If I'm on an outbound call, right, an external call, I'm yellow. Up here, the little phone icon, this is where you can select what VoIP device you're taking calls on. I only have the one. uh, and then you click that to go back to normal. Right now, when I go to lunchtime, I would mark myself away, right? So that way inbound callers won't try to ring me unnecessarily and waste hold time. And then end of my day, I would click end session. All right, blacklist. Blacklist is on every account. It allows you to block numbers from reaching your account. Right, so you click edit blacklist. You can click add new to create a new list, or you can click on an existing list. You can change the name. Block anonymous, right? If you turn that on, that means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, we'll block the call from reaching. Otherwise, you would click add number, and then you put +1 area code and phone number, and clicking add for each additional phone number, and then click save. So once you've added all the numbers, then you click save, you click back to settings, and then you make sure that list is over here on the right under selected. Right, so these two lists, any phone numbers on these two lists, when they try to call any of my phone numbers, they get a busy tone. Right, so they're not going to be able to connect those. Right, so like robodialers or someone, kid, playing around and being obnoxious. Dynamic caller ID. This is available on some plans. So you want to talk to our account services team. But basically what this does is allows your staff members to change their outbound caller ID on the fly. Basically, you create rules that they can use and to change up their caller ID. So you would create a new rule. I'm just going to go ahead and click edit here. So you give it a name. You select a phone number on your account that you want to display as a caller ID. And then in this case, I'm using a feature code. So my staff members from the VoIP phone, they hit *71, then they enter in the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. And no matter what their caller ID settings were, this will be the phone number that shows up on the outbound caller ID. Right. Another option is this one up here at the top. So I said, hey, 408 area code, I'm going to have this toll-free number display. But whenever my staff members enter area code 408 as their outbound call, the system will automatically say, nope, this is your outbound caller ID. The fax manager, right, you can see your fax activity on the account. Right, so that was inbound faxes. I can go to outbound. You can also get to the email to fax logs. And now if there's any entries here, right, you'll see like an thumbs up or a thumbs down, the to and the from. But over here, under details, there's a little eyeball icon. You can click on that. And it'll give you more details about why the outbound fax did not go, like invalid attachment, etc. Monitor is also on specific plans. It's something, but it allows you to see what your staff members' status is, right? And it doesn't matter what kind of phone they're using. So green means they're waiting for inbound call, right? They're available. Blue, they're on inbound. Yellow, outbound. Red, they've marked themselves away, etc. Right? You can see who's available. You can see who's busy. This also has the option where you can see parked calls as well as any active calls. Again, if something you're interested in, you'd want to talk to our account services team. Number manager, this takes you to your spare numbers. The recording manager, this actually takes you to your recording storage, which is at recordings.virtualpbx.com. It uses the same login information as your Dash login, but this is where you would view your recordings, listen to them. You can also download them or delete them from your account. Reports, this is advanced reporting. basically it allows you to create your own reports based off of the call log data, essentially. Uh, Gives you better insight into what's going on with the calls that are coming in or are going out from your system. Again, this is something that I don't know if I think it's on specific plans. It might be something that's also just an add-on. They kind of change the plans on me frequently, it seems like, or it feels like to me anyway. So if you're interested in advanced reporting, that's something you want to talk to our account services team to verify if it's something that's already included in your plan or if it's something that you would need to change your plan to acquire. Voicemails, this goes you to the voicemail manager. So you can see voicemails on any of the users. And you can see there's a new one, there's one that was listened to. You see the date that they came in on and the time, phone numbers, and the phone number that person dialed, duration of the message. You can download the message, you can play back the message, you can get some technical details. You can also change how you sort. You can change the status of a message, or you can send it to a different voicemail box, like, oh no, this message really should have been going to Bob, or I'm having Bob take over that message for whatever reason. Webhooks, this makes use of APIs to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in webhooks, you actually need to speak to our sales team. They have some additional information. You can also look at developer.virtualpbx.com to see some of the things we have done with webhooks. Oh, and then we got the user portal. So every user on your account has their own user portal. And you can only get to your own, right? And as an admin, you can get to everything else that a user has access to. So it's not really a huge deal. But here under voicemail, so on this user, I don't have delete after notification turned on, and that's why the voicemails are showing up here, right? If I did have delete after notification turned on, there'd be nothing here to look at, nor would there have been under the voicemail manager, right? But if I put a check mark here, right, so I can change how I'm sorting. Right, so now it's saying, oh, that's your one you've listened to, etc. I can change it to mark as new. So now they're both listed as new. Again, I got the date and the time, phone number, option to play back or download. Call history shows the call history on my user, right, both inbound and outbound. I can change the date range if I want to. Faxes would show my fax history. The contact list, right, shows the users on the account and the groups. Basically, this is within the Dash account. Users are not able to add to this, right? This is just within your Dash account. Sorry about that. So here under conference, over here on the right, it's a little squished. But here, your users can adjust both their moderator pin and their participant pin number. And then they have the options here for how people join, right? So do you want people to join muted? Do you want them joining deafened, as well as play entry and exit tones? Up here, you can invite other Dash users to your existing conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody, and you can end the call. When you're actually in a conference, you can unmute people and mute them, deafen them, undeafen them, or kick a specific person. And then settings and devices. So this is where your users can enable their own call forwarding and decide the device. The main thing is make sure they have that +1 in front of the area code and phone number. And then they can say, hey, also ring my VoIP phone, etc. And they can also see the status of their device. All right, and that is everything. I'm going to head back here to the dashboard. I'll hang out here for a minute or so in case people want to send a question via chat, and we'll go from there. All right, not seeing any questions come through. Just a reminder, we will not be having a training next week, but we will be returning on the 30th. Again, thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.